were not present for their children. So I think if you're present when you're home, that's the key.
100%. If you are going to be with your kids only 2 hours a day, but you have the technology off and you're focused on them and you're listening to them, that's far more valuable than being distracted for 10 hours. So there is something to be said for the fact that we all have needs, and our needs involve friends and our communities and our careers and our goals and our relationships and our kids. And it's really important to recognize that you are a better parent when you have friends. You're a better parent in a healthy relationship. You're a better parent if you're doing something fulfilling all day long. And so it's all about how happy and fulfilled you are. And at the end of the day, if your kids see that they have a happy parent, they're most likely going to have a happy life. But a lot of times we don't realize that we look like we're just surviving the day and life is so hard. And that's not what you want your kids to think adulthood is, right? So if you think of it from their perspective, if they see you enjoying your friends and enjoying your relationship and enjoying your life, they're far more likely to live a life they love in the future.
I love that. That's so good. So many nuggets there. And I know a lot of the times we hear that we can't have it all, but your book says we can have it all. Why can we have it all?
I think you just need to redefine what all means. When for the Pie Life, I interviewed 100 different women who were at the tops of their careers, from the head of a university to the head of a fashion line to, the top woman on Wall Street. And they had a couple of things in common. One is that they spent almost no time feeling guilty. It was an extraneous ingredient in their pie. They spent no time on it. The second was that they all lived really full lives. So even though they might be the CEO, they weren't just a CEO and a mom. They were also a friend, and they were also a sister, and they were also involved in coaching Little League or whatever it was. They were taking things on which led to a full life. A lot of times, because of a perfectionist bent, whether it's in us or it's been taught to us, we think, okay, if I just am a mom this year and just focus on my marriage and my momming, I will be the perfect wife and the perfect mom. Or if I just focus on working out and working, I'll have the perfect body and I'll do great in my career. That's not natural. And that's not when we're happiest. We're happiest when we're involved in a lot of different things. And I think it's recognizing that you're going to drop balls. And that's okay, because everyone's life is supposed to be messy. When you look, the reason I've always loved the pie analogy, when you look at a pie and it's store-bought and perfect looking, is that going to taste as good as the dripping, over the side gooey pie? No, you're going to choose the gooey pie every time. And that's how your life is supposed to look. You want a fun, exciting life, and saying no to everything is not going to lead to that exciting life. Saying yes to the margarita with a friend, and yes to going to your daughter's play, and yes to the promotion, that's going to lead to a fulfilling life.
And it's going to be a little bit messy. It's not going to be perfect if you're I like to go for everything, and because at the end of the day, I don't want to live with the regret of what I didn't do. And I think as long as you're present with whatever it is you're doing, because the guilt is just like fear. It takes too much of your energy and focus away from the thing that you're actually doing.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, if you are, I remember working with this one woman, and she was a big person in finance, and she quit her job because she said she didn't want to miss a moment of her younger child's life. And she felt she missed so much of her son's milestones. So one day she was at a soccer game with her older son. She quit her job, and she missed her younger daughter's first steps because she was at the soccer game, not because she was at work, but because she was at the soccer game. And at that moment she said, I thought I'd be this mom who never misses a moment. And there's no way to not miss a moment. You're going to miss it for some reason or other. And so it's best to just live that full life and accept the fact that it's going to be messy. I mean, all of us have made mistakes as moms. And the bottom line is that a stay-at-home mom makes just as many mistakes as a working mom. You end up forgetting the uniform, where you end up forgetting to pack something. Or I remember I always say, like, save the guilt for these moments. So I was once on an airplane. I woke up and I was supposed to go to Minneapolis that day for my book tour. And I woke up that morning and one of my kids had 102 fever, my daughter Ruby. And I was so sad to leave her and I felt so badly, but I got her settled at home and I got ready for my 12 o'clock flight. And I thought, okay, as soon as I get on that flight, I'm just going to focus on work because that will be more beneficial to my family than if I sit here feeling guilty on the plane. So I'm on the plane and I remember I was in coach middle and my phone rings and I didn't know that phones could ring on airplanes. And I looked down and it's my child's school. So I picked up and my other two kids were at school that day and it was the teacher and she said, you don't have lunch for Ella. And I thought, oh my gosh, it was the first of the month. And if I didn't have lunch for Ella, that meant that I also didn't have lunch for her kindergarten brother, Bowen. So here I was in the air. I had two starving kids, one sick child, and I was going to give a talk on work-life balance. Talk about imposter syndrome. I was like, okay, this is me. And the teacher said, don't worry, we can feed them Cheez-Its today. And I thought, oh my goodness. Like, so now I say, okay, is this a Cheez-It moment? If it's a Cheez-It moment, you can feel guilty, but otherwise leave the guilt, behind.
Oh gosh, that reminds me of when I took my friend to the summit of greatness. She drove me because I had a complete avulsion of the hamstring from the groin. So I had just had surgery and I wasn't allowed to drive and I really wasn't supposed to be sitting. So I had to sit sideways just to go. And she was volunteering. She's my driver and her son had a swim meet that day. And she was always at his swim meets, never missed. And she was feeling guilty. But then I was like, hey, why don't you just leave him like a really like cheerleader kind of message or a little video? And she did. And he listened to that over and over and told her that that was why he won his race. And
Oh, I love that story.
and you know what, she just found this way to it. He even liked that more, like just to pivot and to still be his biggest cheerleader. And at the end of the day, I think that's what your family wants to know, is that you're cheering for them and that you love them. And if you can leave that impact, it doesn't mean you're holding their hand 24/7. And also, they're little entities, so they can do things and they can learn and grow and evolve and be strong. We don't want to also be these coddlers that everybody gets a trophy all the time.
That's so true. And, in interviewing lots of really successful people, most of them had parents who made them believe they could be anything. If you talk to the world's most successful people, almost all of them had parents who made them feel awesome inside. And it wasn't about the specifics of being at a certain thing or doing something. It was all about how they made them feel. They made them feel really loved. So you
Yeah.
hit the nail on the head. Yeah.
So huge, so huge. So you were talking earlier about how relationships affect everything. And I really agree with you, because I could teach you to eat all the greens out there, all the exercise, and all of the things. But if you really have a sad home life or a disconnected relationship, it's going to affect you. It's going to affect your health. And so, how does this come into play when you're leading women? How do you help them when you see them struggling in this way?
So a lot of it is something we talked about a little earlier, which is expectations. So it's having higher expectations of the relationships in your life and letting go sometimes of the relationships that are holding you back, whether it's friendships or romantic relationships. But if you're with someone who is putting down your goals or your dreams, that's the number one sign you shouldn't be with them, because you can't reach your potential as a human being, whether it's personal or professional, if you are living with someone who is not believing in you or not your biggest fan. And so all of us deserve to live with someone who is behind us and supporting us. And we shouldn't settle for anything less. In terms of friendships as well, I think that we all have friends who are happier being around us when things are going poorly for us. And those are not good friends. You want friends that are going to be by your side when things are going great and they'll be by your side when things are not going well. Those are the best kind of friends.